Okay, back to doing this on my phone. They still don't have it set up so I can do it in Canvas. So hopefully this will work okay, and I hope that having the sound of golf on in the background isn't too disturbing. I want to get this video up when I put the unit up, which means doing it in my house on a Sunday, which can be a little crazy, but honestly it's better to do it down here where golf is on rather than upstairs where my son's playing PlayStation, which is all the more noisy. Anyway, a couple of things. I had a couple of you contact me because it said that in the syllabus you were supposed to have a meeting with me to choose your research topic. And that honestly was the original plan, that I was going to try and meet with each and every one of you individually via Skype or FaceTime, in some way, via phone. But then when we end up with 30 people signed up for the class, I figured that I would put it as the option of doing it as the assignment in Canvas, which is how we have it, and then give you comments, which I've been doing for those of you who submitted your research topic, and making suggestions that, to talk to me or look into finding primary resources, whatever it is I think might be an issue. You can always set up a meeting with me also. We can meet in Zoom, we can meet on Skype, we can meet on FaceTime, whatever works for you. We can just talk on the phone, however you want to do it. So that is always an option. Don't ever hesitate to do that. And there are some of you who text me on a regular basis, which is great because, like I said, that can sometimes be the easiest way to get a hold of me, as some of you have discovered by texting me. Email, I'm pretty quick also, but sometimes I don't have the access right away, and also sometimes things slip through the cracks for 24 hours when there's a lot going on. So be aware of those are ways to get a hold of me. Okay, so in this unit number 3, which is the economy and social structure of colonial Latin America, we are really getting into the heart of colonialism. All right, we're looking now, we're past the conquest, we're past the initial development, and we're getting into how did they sustain themselves, how were they making money, and what were they doing with their society. So in the chapter on economy, I know sometimes students complain this chapter is a little boring. It really is economic, okay? Economic history, which some people aren't thrilled with, but if you can think about and try and focus on the different ways that these places were utilizing resources and making their way in this new land, because it's still fairly new. And back, we're talking in the 1600s, right? 1700s. And the way they're doing things like mining and sugar production, and they get into cattle. And in Brazil in particular, they start discovering precious resources. This is pretty phenomenal, right? Even just the portion on mining, it's really interesting, right? How are they finding these mines and extracting all of this? How are they going further than the indigenous people had done? And then also, how is this factoring into trade? And what's really interesting is you'll start to see problems that Spain in particular had with controlling trade with their colonies, and ways that they would try to reassert that control, and how could they kind of keep their hold over things, even though it took, in some cases, it took a year for the Spanish fleet to go back and forth between the American colonies and Spain. So it makes it difficult. And then, people started to kind of push back against paying their taxes or against monopolies. And later this would feed into the Spanish desire to reassert control through the Bourbon reforms. But right now we're looking at more of the initial economy, right? Then we're going to get into the social structure, the social economy of Latin America, and how that was set up. So we've already seen this a little bit, but it's going to get more in depth into what role and what place would people have in society. And as the colony matured, this would become more significant. because you have new classes, new ethnic groups, new people who study Latin America are hesitant to call them races, right? Because these were really new ethnicities, but you're talking about new groups of mixed race peoples. And we saw a little bit of that in our previous unit, and we're going to see it more. Where do the castas fit in? Where do the people who are mestizos or mulattos or zambos or prados, where do they all fit in to this? And so we'll look at that structure, where people lived, if they lived in the cities or if they lived in the countryside, and if that was determined by their race, by their ethnicity, what it meant to be white. Because we think, okay, that's pretty obvious, right? But not always. In colonial Latin America, you would see that being white sometimes was determined by wealth, or sometimes was determined by how influential one of your parents was if the other one wasn't completely white. If you could make enough money, you could buy your way into, quote unquote, being white. You could whiten yourself, right? Not always. I mean, that would happen more with indigenous people, especially those descended from the upper Indian classes, but it could happen. What would be the role of slaves, and how could they at times work to change that role? Because that was much more accessible in Latin America than it was in the colonial United States. Not that it happened a ton, but it could happen, right? So I encourage you, as you're going through this unit, to kind of keep your mind open and try and draw away from our current ideas about race and class and racial mixtures and what color means. Because race and color wasn't always determined by phenotype. It wasn't always determined by how you looked or by your skin. It sometimes was determined by your job or where you lived, if you were urban or rural. So these were all really interesting things and new things for many of you. Again, you have quizzes on the 2 chapters. You have a few documents from Colonial Lives that will help to support these ideas, especially about economy, okay? And then we have our discussions. So if anything comes up, like I said, text me, call me, just follow my guidelines on please don't text or call between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. I actually do also have a family life. But yeah, let's move forward, and I hope you find this unit interesting. I'm going to try, if I can, I'm going to see how crazy it gets around here and how my computer will communicate with me to put in a little bit of lecture comments in the PowerPoints that I post. We'll see if I can get that going. If I don't worry. But if you have any questions about the PowerPoints, also let me know. All right? Talk to you soon.